Hey, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, good evening, depending on where you're based. Welcome to this live stream event by Product People. Today we have a very interesting talk. I will disclose the topic in a minute. Before that, please join us in Slido, depending on where you want to join. If you're joining from the phone, feel free to scan the QR code. If you're joining from the laptop, go into the Slido webpage and type in the code you see in the screen. You will be able to participate in the polls that we will be launching during the talk. And also in Slido, you will be able to submit questions. We will also keep an eye on the questions that you submit in YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And yeah, without further ado, today we have with us Kenneth McKinney. He's the co-president of People with Disabilities and Allies Business Council at Motorola Solutions. And he is today with us to talk about mental wellness for PMs. Really hot topic, and personally quite looking forward to see what learnings Kenneth has to share with us. Before we go into before I hand it over to Kenneth, I will briefly introduce myself and what we do at Product People. I am Dionisio Arredondo, and originally from Spain. I've been with Product People for over a year as a product management consultant. You can read about my experience in these slides. What we do at Product People, well, we organize these kind of events. We are very active on social media, and this is how we give back to the community. We also publish articles in our website and strive to share product knowledge across different platforms and how we make money. We are an interim product management services company, so we offer product management services, product operations, and acceleration to product operating model. Before we jump into the talk, I would like to share this question with the audience. Another opportunity to join Slido now, scanning the QR code and typing in the code. What's the hardest part of staying mentally healthy as a PM? Is it the constant pressure to deliver? Is it the emotional load of decision making? As PMs, we make a lot of decisions throughout our week. Is it the never feeling done? Or is it the lack of time to disconnect? I'm keen to hear what the audience thinks. What the audience think about this one. There are multiple reasons why PMs are under pressure. A lot of stakeholders around us, a lot of eyes looking at what we have to deliver. So I can imagine it is challenging to stay mentally healthy in this environment. Cool. I can share some early results. 57% of respondents agree with constant pressure to deliver being one of the main reasons. And then 29% is in line with the option C, never feeling done. Interesting to see these results. Without further ado, let's move to the talk. Kenneth, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Yes, hello, thank you. Do you mind if you could pull up my presentation, please? Perfect. And hello, product people. My name's Kenneth McKinney, and I am joining you today from Texas, United States. And we're here today to talk about mental health for product managers. But before we get into that, I want to give you just a little bit of background on myself. First and foremost, I have ADHD, and I'm also bipolar type 1. Some of you may have heard of ADHD as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And bipolar, it's actually a condition where individuals switch between depression and mania. There's two types. Type 2 is mainly depressive, where type 1 mainly experiences manic episodes. Now, I'm telling you this information because we're talking about mental health today. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, not anything like that. I am talking to you based on my own personal experiences because I had to learn a lot about mental health having these conditions. To be honest, I'm a services person. I'm not a product person, but I do work very, very closely with product managers. We always end up collaborating together to get the job done. I also happen to be Scrum certified, and in all honesty, services and product, it's all really, really similar because what we're doing is we're working together to get a project done, to get a product done, to be able to have a really good outcome for our customers. So you'll see that big M there. Well, it's because I work at Motorola Solutions. I do services for them, but I also lead our People with Disabilities Plus Allies Business Council. And sometimes business councils can be called an ERG, or an employee resource group. And what they do is, well, we essentially put together resources, materials, support, different kinds of things like that for the communities at work. And the one that I lead specifically supports people with disabilities and allies, and we do a lot in the domain of mental health. Now, I heard that a majority of these talks are typically focused on product management aspects, product lifecycle, sprints, things like that. But we're going to flip it around a little bit today. And we're going to talk about the product lifecycle of you, the product manager. And why are we going to do that? Because it's critically important to take care of you. Now, before I got into IT and business management and all those things, I was still in the services, but I was in the domain of firefighting. And there's a credo they teach you in firefighting. It's essentially, first and foremost, you need to help yourself. Because if you don't help yourself, well, you can become part of the problem. And you also can't help your team. So once you've helped yourself, then you go help your team. Because now you and your team can then go help others. And so I wanted to take this information and apply it back to the product manager. So what did I do? Well, I went to Google AI and I did some deep research on product management mental health. And I was just trying to get a snapshot of understanding of where we stand in the world with mental health in the product management domain. And I've got some information I'm going to share with you all. So first is a mental health snapshot. And unfortunately, it turns out that out of the product managers interviewed, roughly 58% have identified that they're experiencing burnout or stress. Then we have, it's almost like 30-ish% say that they're managing well, and then the remaining percentage is thriving. So unfortunately, you can see a very small percent is thriving. Some are managing to get by, but the majority are dealing with burnout and stress. But let's dig in a little bit deeper to that managing. How do some PMs manage? Well, we took a look at the prevalence of adaptive or healthy or maladaptive or unhealthy coping strategies. And that's what we're showing you in this chart here. It may look a little complicated, but you're actually just getting pinpoints on the different percentages of these domains. In the healthy domain, we see things like physical exercise, peer venting, therapy coaching, and setting boundaries. But unfortunately, we also see a pretty big prevalence of some of the unhealthy coping strategies. If you can see, about 25% or 1 in 4 product managers are leveraging substance use in order to deal with their stressors at work. And astounding 65 to 70% are saying that they're leveraging overworking in order to deal with their stressors at work. So you can see that there's a lot of change and array in the types of adaptive and maladaptive strategies that people are using. But I'd like to dig in a little bit deeper to that overwork. You see, when people leverage overworking to deal with stress and things of that nature, they can put themselves into the burnout cycle. Now, what the burnout cycle is essentially a 5-stage cycle of human behavior that brings you to a state called burnout. Now, the first stage is that overwork stage, the hero phase. In this phase, our product manager is essentially a yes person. They will say yes to anything. It could be near the end of their delivery and they need a massive change to the product, and they'll say yes, absolutely. There may be already at capacity, but there is a new task to be handled, and they'll say, yes, sure, I can take care of that. And what happens to the hero is, unfortunately, they get themselves overloaded. They start to take on more than they can handle, and the complexity builds and builds and builds. And then you can see how very easily, when you're overloaded, it can become to get frustrated. Even small things like somebody interrupting you during a meeting or while you're working can lead to frustration and anger. Now you're in this overload state. You're getting frustrated at minor things, and it puts a load on your body. And so what happens is you start to become depleted. You lose all your energies. And things that used to maybe take 20, 30 minutes to do, well, now they're taking an hour because you just don't have as much left in you. You're dragging everything you do. And if you stay in this depleted state for long enough and you keep on working and doing and doing and doing, you will eventually burn yourself out. And what burnout is you just don't have anything left. You don't have any energies, you don't have any capacity, and even the smallest, simplest things can be overwhelmingly complicated to you. An example of burnout that you might be able to see is individuals who can't even get themselves out of bed in the morning to go take a shower because it's just so overwhelming. And so, what can we do about this burnout cycle? Well, I'm going to go over a couple of things, and it's twofold. I'm going to talk about what you can first do for your people, the ones that you're supporting, your teams, your colleagues, your friends, your family, your loved ones, anyone who's experiencing, these stresses and burnout. What can we do to help them? And then we're going to go into what we can do to help you, the product manager, and yourself. So we're going to start with conflict. When you're dealing with people and you're dealing with burnout and stress, and especially in the product management domain, conflicts can arise very quickly. People sometimes don't always see eye to eye. They may not always have the same goals in mind. And then stresses added on top of that situation can quickly explode. So I have a really good idea that you can do the next time you experience a conflict. You just need to let it go. Just let that conflict go. And what I mean by that is it's a really great way to remember labeling empathy and trust. Because with labeling empathy and trust, you actually can let those conflict situations go. Now, some of you may have heard of labeling as like labeling an individual. You call someone a conflict person. Well, I've just labeled you a conflict person. But labeling does not always apply in that domain. You can label things in your environment too. So next time you're in a conflict, instead of going up to somebody and saying, you seem upset, instead of labeling them, why don't you try labeling your environment with what and it-based questions? It seems like something's not right here. What's going on? Would you like to talk about it? What I did there is I didn't just label the person. I didn't bring them into their own internal environment. I labeled the situation, and I brought them out of their mind into the external environment. And why did I do that? Well, I did that because I'm trying to gather information. trying to gather information about the environment, trying to gather information about what's going on in the individual. And I'm doing all of this so I can practice something called empathy. And what is empathy? Well, empathy is essentially feeling the same visceral body experiences that someone else is feeling. So if I come up on someone who is frustrated or angry, they might have an elevated voice. They might have an elevated heart rate. Their chest might be a little bit tight. Their posture might be a little raised. And they're going to have certain visceral or bodily experiences that are going on at that same time. What I want to do is try my best to experience the same thing. Because if I can understand what they are experiencing, then I can start to relate to them. Now, there is a difference between empathy and sympathy with an S. Sympathy is empathy plus action. I'm empathizing with you. I feel how you feel. Now I'm going to take action. And empathy is just feeling. The neat thing about empathy and the act of sympathy is that when you do these with individuals, you start to build trust. And with trust, you start to feel safe. You start to feel comfortable. And it's a lot easier to just let those conflicts go. So next time you're in a conflict situation, just try and let it go. Label things in your environment. Use that empathy and sympathy and build that trust so you can quickly move on. Now, the second thing I'd like to talk about in helping others in conflict situations and stress and so forth is emotional regulation. Now, high level, what emotional regulation is the fact that our human bodies, well, they're run by these two systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. And they're attached to like everything, your muscles, your skin, your organs, your eyes, your brain. And they kind of dictate what you do and how you feel. So one system is responsible for giving you kind of like a up regulation. So think if you saw a lion, you want to be very heightened. You want to be able to fight or flight or run away. And so your system will upregulate you quite high. Now, let's say you see that same lion and that lion jumps at you, but he eats your buddy. Well, you're going to be really sad and distraught and upset that you've lost a loved one. And that same system, it will regulate you very downwards. Now, the thing is, it's very healthy and natural for us to have this fluctuation of regulation in our systems. We are healthily regulated in a certain range of up and down. But when you go outside of that range, you start to become dysregulated. And if you stay dysregulated for a long time, you can start getting things like stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, and so forth. Now, what dysregulates people? Well, things like I explained, very emotional situations like lions and deaths. But there's also more simpler things that dysregulate people. Uncertainty, not knowing what happens next. That is one of the biggest dysregulators for us humans, not having an idea of the future. Think about as product managers, how much planning we do, how much reporting we do. It's all to get rid of uncertainty because it's highly dysregulating to us. But it's not the only thing that's dysregulating. There's many other things too. Take capacity limitations, for instance. A capacity limitation can be easily thought of with the act of juggling. If you throw a ball to me, I can probably quite easily hold it and catch it and throw it up and down and catch it again. You throw another one at me, I might be able to do the same with 2. You do 3, I'll take my act at juggling. And I'll probably be okay. But 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, the more that you put on me, the more I'm starting to hit my capacity levels, and I'm not able to succeed, and I start to become dysregulated. Interestingly enough, it seems that the human brain really only has a capacity for like 7-ish widgets at a time. Now you can test this yourself. Start writing down a string of random numbers and then repeat it to yourself in your head. Start with 7. then do 8, then 9, 10. See how long it takes before you start to lose track of those first numbers and you're only able to hold about 6 or 7 pieces of information. So with that said, you can see how it can be pretty easy for people to reach their limitations. And then people can get triggered too. What a trigger is something that's in your environment that's causing a sensation within you and then subsequent actions. Many times triggers, well, they're associated with past experiences. And so it's very, very difficult for you to understand what might be triggering someone because you don't know all of their past experiences. A lot of traumas or hardships in life can cause very innocent seeming situations to be very triggering to people. And why is this important to us in business? Well, because we communicate a lot with each other. And if you miscommunicate, you can accidentally be triggering someone. You could be not giving them enough information and causing uncertainty, or you could be giving them too much information and reaching their capacity limits. Or maybe you just said an innocent statement or word that you yourself were not concerned with, but it was highly offensive and triggering to them. All of these things can get an individual dysregulated. And so can inability. You go back to that juggling, well, I can't juggle at all. And so if you threw 3 balls at me, I would not be able to handle the process. I am unable, and I would start to become very dysregulated if that was my job to do for 8 hours. So what about the reverse? How can I get re-regulated if I'm not being regulated, if I'm dysregulated? Well, we're talking about how to help others. So this is how to help others, and we will get into ourselves in just a moment. But if you find yourself again in that conflict situation and somebody is a little bit dysregulated, well, use labeling. Use what-based questions, it-based questions, not why and you. You don't want them to get brought into their internal environment and start ruminating. You want to bring them out into the external environment so they can start working with you for a great resolution. And then we go back to uncertainty and miscommunication. Well, if I'm in a place that I've never been before and I'm lost, what am I going to do? I'm going to ask for direction, because direction helps clear uncertainty. It helps alleviate that dysregulation. And so if you find someone who is a little bit uncertain or dysregulated, give them some direction. And it also is very important to try your best to understand what they're going through, that empathy we were talking about. And a good way to exercise empathy is through active listening. And what active listening is, it's actually paying attention to the individual and being a part of that conversation. And I have a really cool acronym, essentially, to help you remember how to actively listen to individuals in a conversation. And it's called SOLAR. So I'm going to tell you what they all stand for, and we'll give you just a real high level of what to do. So step 1, S, square off with your conversation partner. That means actually face them. Put your body in their direction. What we're doing is we are taking physical control of our attention. Oh, now it's time to open ourselves up. We want to open up our mind and body to new ideas. Do not come into your conversation with these preconceived notions of how it's going to end. And also, do not physically close your body off. Keep it open. L, lean in. Why are we leaning in? Well, it's the same reason that we're squaring off and opening our body. We are leveraging physical actions to take control of our mind and put our attention where it needs to be. A, attend to the conversation. Now, what we mean by attend to the conversation is actually be there, participate in that conversation. Because you don't want to be in a conversation and thinking about what's going on your next project or your next call. You're missing vital information, and that other individual is likely getting dysregulated because they can feel that they're not being respected and attended to. And speaking of respect, that's what R is for. Respect the conversation. And how do you show respect to that other conversation individual? Well, you do it by simple actions like paraphrasing. Take what they said to you, recant it in your own understanding, and deliver it back. That way, they can know that what they delivered to you had the meaning and intent that they meant to deliver. And if it didn't, they have a chance to correct themselves. Also, just ask follow-up questions that are pertinent to the conversation. Doing those things that are very simple can easily show respect. But remember, when you're showing respect, you're not actually practicing empathy. You are actively listening so that you can get information, so that you can practice empathy and have those feelings. Because the goal here, what we're trying to do, is we want to understand what would make me act this way so that I can finally understand you. Speaking of you, now we have some techniques for yourself. First, we're going to start with some techniques that you can use in the business place, like during meetings, that you don't need to be very obtuse about doing them. So our first one is grounding. And with grounding, what you're doing is you're actually just putting your attention and focus on the feelings around you. You're concentrating on the feelings, the physical feelings in your body, from the textures and pressures that are around you. Let's say the chair you're sitting in, you feel the pressure on your sit bone, or the shirt that you're wearing, you feel the texture on your skin, or the wind in the room, you feel it blowing. These actions will help, again, get you out of your mind and into the external environment and help you start being re-regulated again. You can also visualize. What visualization is you are actually looking around, you're identifying an object in your immediate environment, and you are describing it to yourself. You can do this in your head. You can look over and you can say, hey, okay, that's white. It's round and black, about 3 feet tall. There's a chair. There's 5 circles. I'm describing a drum set. I was just looking over there. But you get the idea. You can look at different things in your environment and describe them to yourself. And again, we're doing the same thing. We're just trying to pull ourselves out of our mind. Now, you don't always want to step away from those feelings. And so mindfulness is a really neat thing. In order to be good at empathy, you have to actually feel those body sensations and those emotions. And so if it's a little overwhelming sometimes, those sensations to you, you can slowly start to befriend them with mindfulness. And what mindfulness is that you are just letting the emotion and the sensation exist. You are recognizing it. You're not doing anything to get it to go away or anything like that. You're just noticing it and being curious. And what this does is over time, you will actually start to befriend your emotions, and they can give you a lot more information about what's going on. For example, like if you're anxious about something, you might have a tight feeling in your chest. Well, just focus on that tight feeling and ask it, what are you trying to tell me? So grounding, visualization, mindfulness. Great ways to get yourself re-regulated using your mind. But sometimes you need to use your body. And so the thing is, when you're very anxious or stressed out, a lot of the time you're going to have excess energies, and you need to reduce them so that you can get back down into that lower level state. A great way to do that is fidgeting with things. You can flip a pen or play with fidget toys or a spinner, squeezing stuff, squishy balls, stress balls, those types of things are really good to get that energy out of your body. Or just walk, get up, walk around for a little bit, say, excuse me, give me a few minutes to go to the bathroom. And take a walk and change your environment, and you'll notice that your physical sensations will start to change too. You can also relax and ground yourself a little bit ahead of time and after time of that stressful situation. So if you're able, and you're going to be getting into a pretty stressful situation, try and bring a comfort item with you. Maybe it's your favorite piece of candy. Maybe it's a blanket or a nice jacket or a shirt that you really enjoy. These things can really help regulate you in time of need. If able, also companionship is amazing. dogs, cats, friends, family, loved ones. This gives you an opportunity to have something in your environment you can speak to and touch and all of these great things, and it really does help a lot. And then it's very important for you to make sure to take time to pause and break and enjoy the creativity in life. Music and art are amazing because anxiety and worry, that's all future forward. When you're playing music, when you're doing art, you're in the now and you're just releasing all of these creative juices that help you start to, one, recognize who you are, and two, feel good about yourself. Now, to kind of wrap everything up, I've put together 2 toolkits for you. There's an anxiety toolkit and a depression toolkit. So, anxiety, think of that as like the precursor to stronger things like depression. And that's why we're starting with this one. If you're ever experiencing anxiety, there's some neat life hacks that you can do. And I know they're both a little bit weird, but they actually do work. The first one is to smell black pepper. That's right. Just get one of those little cans of black pepper or something and open it and smell the pepper. What you're doing is you're engaging your olfactory senses, and they're connected to your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system that we were talking about, and it helps regulate. Also, you can do basic math. The thing is, when you're heightened and anxious and things of that nature, you're stuck in this emotional state. And we want to move ourselves to a more logical state so that we can figure out what's going on and what to do next. Now, to switch between those two states, an easy way is to do some basic math. I did not say simple math. If you do a 2 plus 3 or you do the multiplication tables or anything that you have memorized, it's not going to work. You need to actually engage those executive functions. So something like 12 plus 32, it's easy, but it's just difficult enough that it will start to pull you away from that emotional system. Also, again, as mentioned, stress balls, fidget toys are great for anxiety. When you're feeling anxiety, you're getting that excess energy throughout your body. And the toy, it lets that energy go. And it's also something physical in your environment that you can feel and touch and ground and mentalize with. And it helps engage those executive functions. Finally, as just mentioned, grounding is very, very good for anxiety. It's great because it can be done without the need of anything. You know, my chair feels blank on my body. There is a lamp in the corner. The couch is brown. The floor is tile. My shirt is blank on my skin. Very simple ways that you can start to reground yourself in an anxious situation. Now, our depression toolkit. I've been talking a lot about, think of solar and how I was saying you need to do body actions. Well, there is this huge mind-body connection. I actually read somewhere, and it's kind of interesting. It's how I remember the mind-body connection, is that you cannot be sad or depressed while you are in the immediate act of skydiving. If you are falling out of a plane at, terminal velocity, there is just no physical way that your brain can give you the sensations of depression. You're not going to see someone crying from depression, maybe fear and anxiety, but certainly not depression. And it's because your mind and your body, they are connected. And so there's some neat little things that you can do to help yourself feel a little better. One is positive affirmations. Write, you are an awesome person, and stick it to your wall. So every day you get to see that and smile and know that you are an awesome person. Say, hey, you're enough, and wear it so that you and others know that y'all are amazing people. There's also this thing called the halo effect in psychology. High level, if you like one thing about something, you will more than likely like a lot more things about that same thing. And so there's a neat thing that you can do. If you're not having the best days or times, well, you can wake yourself up and dress to the nines. Look the best you've ever looked in your life and stare in the mirror and say, wow, I am beautiful. And then what's going to happen is that halo effect is going to carry out through the rest of your day. And again, going back to that mind-body connection, Your nutrition is very important. Make sure you're eating a varied diet. And that's because the microorganisms that live in your gut, they actually release chemicals and toxins and things that interact with the nervous systems in your gut. And that goes and sends signals to your brain and starts talking. If you've ever thought of a craving before, I actually read somewhere that cravings are originated from this gut-brain connection. Pretty interesting. Now, I have two question scenarios you can go through if you're feeling depressed, but this is more about a specific situation and not general domain. The last one was general domain. If you're upset about a very specific situation, you can use if-then analysis. You tell yourself, what am I worried about? And you start to dig into that. And you say, what would happen if that was to happen? And then what would happen? And then what would I do? And this helps you start experiencing that situation and those emotions and working through them. Something similar to the if-then analysis is the 5 W's. You can ask yourself, why am I upset? Why does this matter to me that I'm upset? What can I do about it? Who can help me do these things? Because help is amazing. And when can we start to get it done? And this just takes you out of your mind, puts you into the world. Because, stress, it's not a bad thing. It's really not. The PM well-being thrives on stress. If you don't have enough stress, then you're depressed. And so you need stress. You need stress or good stress. And it will bring you to your peak performance. But you can't stay there forever. And you'll start to be depleted. And if you stay in that depleted state, you will experience burnout. And we remember the burnout cycle. It's anxiety, which is future-facing. It's the stress. It's you trying to self-regulate, but in a negative domain. It's your body giving you this biological response because of these things going on. And it sums up to the effective and affective outputs. Affective is just your emotions. So I have a suggestion for you all. When you start feeling this stress, when you start feeling this way, when you start noticing maybe I'm getting too burnout, well, you need to stop and pause and take care of yourself. Because I'm telling you, there is no team anywhere without me. Thank you all for your time. I'm happy to take any questions you may have now.
Thanks a lot, Kenneth, for your talk. It was great. It's a bunch of learnings that not only apply to product managers, but to everyone out there. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Now it's the time for questions. So please join Slido if you haven't done so, and throw in your questions over there. While you draft your questions, I will share a couple more slides about product people briefly. So when do companies usually ask us to join them? Well, first of all, working as interim product managers. Second use case would be as coach or advisors. And third one would be as a product discovery expert to help you accelerate discovery of that great initiative you have in the backlog. These are some of our clients. And without further, one more slide about product people. We've supported more than 619 product teams. We have 40 product leaders and product managers in-house, out of which 59% are women, 60% are in the leadership team. And now let's go without further ado to the questions to you, Kenneth. So we already have a couple of questions from our audience. First one is an anonymous question asking which part of the product manager role do you think is the most emotionally draining, but it is rarely acknowledged?
That's a very good question. It takes me back to empathy. I don't think I could say that any particular role or part of the role can be generalized as the most difficult or the most stressful, because what you don't realize, I saw this cool picture today actually, and it really sums up what I'm trying to say here. There was this giraffe in a pool, and his neck was sticking out, and there was a dog standing next to the pool, and he goes, "Hey guys, how's the water?" And the giraffe goes, "It's fine. It's up to my neck." And so, the dog clearly would sink to the bottom, where the giraffe is just fine. It's up to his neck. And it shows that while it's the same situation, it can be experienced differently by different individuals. So, you go back to that triggering that I was talking about, and where you don't really know what somebody has been through, what they're experiencing. And so, it could, what could be very simple for you might be extremely difficult for somebody else. And so if I had to generalize, if I was, forced to generalize and pick something, I would say communication, honestly, because relationships are very tricky. And so, and that whole empathy aspect, it's not that people don't want to empathize, it's that it's hard for for your mind to take that new frame of reference. If you're that dog and you're standing next to the water and you see just this little head bobbing out, well, your mind of reference is, hey, it goes up to my neck. But you don't realize that, my neck for that individual is a 7-foot neck.
Mhm. Yeah, on the communication aspects, we also interact with we have so many interactions in a single day that it's hard to empathize in each and every interaction, and everyone has their own communication style. So I would say this is a great example as well. Another question.
You made me think. It goes back to capacity. You need to slow down at times.
Absolutely. Another question for you, Kenneth. How do you personally tell the difference between healthy stress and this is not okay anymore kind of stress?
That's a very good question. So the healthy stress or eustress and the unhealthy stress or stress, in my experience, they will give you different bodily sensations. For example, I was about to, right before this talk, I've been doing several talks before. This is probably my, you know, 30 to 50th one in my entire lifetime. But I was telling my wife that I was very anxious and nervous, and I could feel it. I could feel tightness in my chest. I was, sweating a little bit. I could just tell that I was stressed, but I knew that it was good stress. And it was twofold. One, because it was kind of like a tingly feeling. It wasn't, where if I was stressed about a meeting that I was about to have with an important client or something like that, and I knew that it was going to end poorly, like I had to go tell them bad news. Well, that stress, it's kind of uncomfortable. But the stress that you get when, you're about to play a game or you're about to win something, or you're at the casino, that kind of stress, it's like it's almost tingly. And so I think it's twofold. The more you practice befriending your emotions, the more you practice empathy and recognizing that what your body sensations are doing is giving you environmental information, then the more you can start to recognize it, that, oh, you're a friendly information and you're not so much a friendly information.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely agree. It comes from observation, observing your own feeling, observing your own body, and understanding, right? With experience, you get to understand your body signals. Another question from Paul this time. What's a small change that us as product managers can make right now that would meaningfully reduce the mental load?
Ask for clarity, I think. There are times when I'll take, for example, me and my wife. She is an autistic individual, and I am not. And so we have very, very different understandings when it comes to the communication domain. And so she may tell me something, and based on my life experiences, I take it and I assume, that's the key word here. I'm assuming that she means this. But in her reality, she's trying to tell me this over here. And so I think if you take that extra moment to ask for clarity, or like when we were talking about doing solar, when you recan and rephrase and send back the information to them to make sure you understood it in the manner they wanted it understood as, it does neat things. Because first, you're taking that moment of time, so you're slowing down, and so you're able to get more of that capacity that you're dealing, that dysregulates. And then secondly, you help resolve that uncertainty. You may say, yeah, he probably meant that, but somewhere in the back of your mind, you have a little bit of uncertainty that's weighing on you. Or you may say, oh, I know exactly what they meant. And now you're causing a miscommunication, which will later on down the line, it's like you're building a technical debt, honestly, in your relationship with that individual. And so really focus on your relationships. Take the time to know that what the person meant to deliver is what you received. Think of it as like a baseball game. When I tell you something, I'm throwing the ball, and you catching it is showing me that what we both intended to happen was happening. Also, write stuff down. Like, don't keep it in your brain. Just if you're in a meeting and you have a question you want to ask somebody, write it down real quick. Keep a piece of paper with you, and that will take one of those 7 capacity widgets that we own, and it will give it back to you.
Thanks. I love how you usually use analogies to explain things that simplify reality a lot, like the baseball game example. Cool. We don't have other questions from the audience, so then I will use this time to ask a question myself, which popped up during your talk. So you mentioned that uncertainty is one of the main factors behind diminishing the nervous system regulation, which made me think that, uncertainty is one of the biggest part of the PM role. We are constantly dealing with uncertainty, trying to reduce uncertainty, but it's never gonna go down to zero. There's gonna always be uncertainty. Do you have any tip on how to increase the tolerance to uncertainty?
Yeah, I think you should actively practice. Think of your emotional system as a muscle. And most people, unfortunately, tend to run away from their emotional systems. When we're in a really difficult, tense situation, we do everything we can to get out of it as quick as possible. And so if you equate that to like going to the gym and trying to work out, if you go to the gym and you start on the treadmill and it is difficult and you say, nope, done with this, you're never going to get better. And so if you treat your emotional system like a muscle and you start practicing it and putting yourself in situations that are not highly dysregulating, you don't want to put yourself in that stress level, but that can give you some stress, some of that good stress. For example, why don't you just one day decide that I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to point the direction, and I'm going to drive. And that's what I'm doing for Saturday. I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive to a new city I've never been before, and I'm going to pull into a restaurant that I've never seen, and I'm going to eat there. And what you did is you purposely put yourself in an uncertain, stressful situation. But it's a stress situation. You did it on your own. It's good. It's not one of those bad stresses that are shoved upon you. And so the more that you practice uncertain situations, the less triggering they will become to you, because you'll have this big repertoire of history of saying, oh, well, I get that I don't know what's going to happen next in this project, but I also remember that I, bought a plane ticket yesterday for a trip tomorrow that I have no idea where I'm going.
Mm-hmm. So building tolerance. Yeah, agree. Cool.
There was a question in the chat, it looks like. Somebody said that they struggle with what I would term focal looping. So they said at winter they can get scared sometimes, and they wonder if there was anything that could help. And so I just wanted to mention that first and foremost, talking to people, like just saying, hey, how can I help, or I need help, is the first step into fixing problems. And the reason I call it focal looping is because it's something that ADHD individuals do a lot, especially, with me with bipolar. If I am in those depressive states, it can force a lot of my thoughts and feelings into the negative domain. And then you take ADHD, which has this tendency to focal loop, which means that you find something interesting to you, whether it's good interesting or bad interesting, and keep going back to it over and over and over and over and over again. And so focal looping, you have to, the first thing to do with it is you recognize that it's happening. And you say, hey, I am stuck in a loop. And when you tell yourself that, you're able to slowly pull yourself out of that loop. And if you find yourself back in it, you just tell yourself again, hey, I'm looping, I need to stop looping. If I do have a real problem, I need to go talk to somebody. I need to get my team, and so that we can work together.
Would social media be one of those loops?
I think it can be, yes. For example, there was a time when the current status of the United States has been difficult for my business council and the people with disabilities. Because it's just, there's a lot of changes that have happened in the United States. They did a lot of changes with DEI and things like that, and it made it difficult to operate. And so for a time, I would be looping on the news about, all the different political things going on. And the interesting thing is your devices will focally loop too. If you start clicking on the same thing over and over again, that's all it's going to show you. And so before I knew it, every time I pull my device up, it was just feed after feed after feed after feed of political news. And unfortunately, the thing about political news is a lot of times people will take those extremes. They don't stick to, a more moderate level. And so I was just constantly getting triggered. I was hearing some extreme article over here and some extreme article over here. And so it really, being looped on that topic in social media is where I was having problem. Social media can benefit a lot of people. For example, a lot of neurodiverse individuals struggle to do in-person conversations, things like having their video on or making telephone calls or things like that. And so, having another outlet for you to meet and socialize with people is a very good thing. I've met lots and lots of people in the neurodiversity and disability space using social media, but it also has a tendency to very easily cause you to focally loop on stuff, because the algorithms, they're also focally looping just like you are.
Got it. Well, Kenneth, we'll have to leave it here. We ran out of time. Thanks a lot for sharing with us your advice and your knowledge and your experience. We have next week Thomas Brower with us to talk about AI and machine learning, hot topic as well. So stay tuned and join us next week. In the meantime, I wish you a lovely rest of the week. And again, thanks everyone for joining, and thank you, Kenneth, for
Yes, thank you.